Hello again, and welcome back to the Anime Tales podcast. I am Joe. Oh, I was hoping
And
that you guys would both
no, just
introduce
like
yourself.
just introduce us. Like, sorry, I didn't realize we were going doing a round. Say, hi, I'm Alex.
Oh, I'm Sam. Take a shot.
Yes, and today we are talking about the discovery of powers. I'm just going to jump right into it. If you don't really know what we're talking about by the discovery of powers, we're talking about how people get their powers, like the origins of them. How exactly do they get them? Or just exactly how they realise that they have them in the first place. For instance, Spider-Man gets bitten by a radioactive spider. Then he starts sticking to walls and shooting webs. Well, in the film, when he actually
The
has...
good movies.
Anyway, so, examples of power discovery in storytelling. Have you seen it before, Alex? What's your example?
My example is again one of my favorites from the original X-Men series, at least. I mean, this been similar in the comics too, but Kitty Pryde, who has powers of phasing or intangibility, and she's literally just in her bed, and one night she just falls through the floor.
Yes, I
Uh,
love that one.
Yeah, and I must say that's I mean a lot of these power discoveries they're usually quite dramatic, and you can't get anything more dramatic and terrifying than just suddenly falling. You ever had one of those dreams where you're falling? Like
I think
imagine
she
just
actually has that as well, doesn't she? She actually has the dream that she's falling, and then she wakes up, and she's hanging from her bed sheets, uh, on from the ceiling underneath her bed.
I mean it's scary enough because it's it could be that you're just like you thinking, "Oh God, I'm sleepwalking." But she's taken her pillow and her bed sheets with her and like the pillow is like stuck in the ceiling. Inexplicably. That is just existentially more terrifying. And it's quite a traumatic experience. I mean, she eventually comes into her powers and it's like just walking and talking eventually, but it's like, also with the X-Men in general, when they discover their powers, mutants in general, it's kind of like the nightmare of going through puberty a little bit. It's sort of like, I find that that's a metaphor for it. I mean, we've all had like
Yeah, kind of, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah. So it's like, yeah, it all comes around to like teenage things, and like they're discovering parts of their, bodies. And usually for normal kids, it's like, oh, hair in weird places, and oh, weird dreams and stuff. And it's like, no, I can shoot fire from my eyes.
Don't worry, I can phase through matter. How is that going to be useful? Well, walls. Yeah, I don't have to worry about those anymore. So, Sam, what's your
Also,
example?
yeah,
Well, I'm going back to very near the very beginning of the Marvel comics.
Oh,
I'm going for the Incredible Hulk origin,
okay.
and mostly because it fits along with actually one of ours, one of the ones we decided to make called the tragic backstory.
Ah, yes. Go on.
Considering that, I mean, just skip through all the terrible things that made the Hulk before he got the nuclear blast. The actual inciting incident is, of course, that Bruce Banner is testing a gamma bomb in the desert. When who should drive by and get their car pretty much to stop right beside the bomb, but soon to be best friend Rick Jones. Rick Jones.
Oh, Rick Jones.
Then Bruce Banner thinks, you know what, save him. So I'm going to run through the desert at pinpoint speed, throw him into a ditch, and then get blasted with radiation. So he see, he's what he did was morally good, but because of it, he had to become the Hulk. It's sad.
So, I'm gonna throw one of my favourite discoveries as an example. Is actually the entire set of discovery in My Hero Academia.
Uh,
No, it's happening now,
take
and
a shot.
I'm gonna go through even further thanks to Sam. In at me. So here we go.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Very rude, Sam.
I
Now
mean,
you're doing the
at least,
call.
I mean, to be honest, I was saving that for One Piece. So I'm semi
Oh
glad.
no, don't worry. It's now happening. Here we go. So no, so in My Hero Academia, most of them are after a while, like a certain percentage of the human population start being born with powers, mutations, abilities, special factors. But the first ever time that ever happens is there's just a baby that just starts glowing, like in the dark, just starts shining. They say like power discovery can be anywhere between the ages of like literal birth all the way up to like 5. So around about 5 years old, the average person will find exactly what their powers are. And in certain circumstances, you actually find out that this one guy who has like powers of fire and ice. Later on, you find out that like when he's a baby, they pretty much realized that he had those powers to begin with, because when he slept, his like anime snot bubble started freezing on the other side when it went past his cold side of his face. So it's like that thing of like he has the ability to. Yeah, I know it's silly, but it is great. It is.
Oh,
it is
anime.
great. Oh, anime indeed. So obviously we're talking about this. You know, the ability to discover one's powers, or at least specifically, we're just talking about powers being discovered in the first place. Some of my favorite moments in general are from My Hero Academia, obviously, because I won't stop talking about it, as Sam has elegantly put. But yeah, so we're going to actually get into something a little bit more important, which is actually talking about how it's actually affected and impacted the concept of fantasy and sort of superhero genre for such a long time. Because let's be honest, the way that they discover it is almost as important as the powers themselves.
Well, it sets the tone,
Yeah.
usually, and it sets it up. It's like, well, I mean, like, with Kitty Pryde, it's like it's just this huge sort of rather traumatic experience, and on top of that, mutants are getting hunted, so it's like there's no way that she can now hide what she's done. So it's basically like, okay, I've got to get out of here now, because I can't like undo the pillow clipping through the ceiling. I have to like accept that this is the case. I can't like run away from it. And that's different. Like one little minor detail I quite like in the House of M comics is like the idea that like some mutants, there's like variations of mutations, and how it's like impacted their lives and how it's treated. Like there's this guy, he's a very minor character, but if people who don't know, House of M is basically when Wanda, aka Scarlet Witch, just says no more mutants, and there aren't any more mutations for a while, except for a handful that she can't touch
Like
for plot reasons.
it's supposed to
Yeah.
be 1% of
Yeah.
all of the universe is unaffected. So the rest of the universe that have mutations suddenly don't. And I always wondered if Thanos was affected by that, because so many people say this to me, like, oh yeah, Thanos isn't a mutant. Actually, he's the only of his own kind. He's a mutant titan.
So it depends, really. I would say, because he's the last of his kind. We don't know really the rest of his kind. He could have been like just kind of average,
Oh
for
no,
his
he's
kind.
actually a mutant. They confirm that
They do confirm that.
he's the only of his kind that actually has the X gene. He counts as a mutant.
Oh,
He's an
right.
alien
Okay,
race, but if you actually see his alien race, like the alien species that he is, I think they're either Titans or Eternals or whatever they're called. I know someone's going to be upset with me. I know that someone in the comments corrected me that it's actually something the other day. I said that's it about the Pokemon types, the damage types, and I said, oh, if all Pokemon had all the same types, it would actually be ground. And I said, no, it's because of flying. He's right though. I meant to say rock, and I said ground. That's a rookie mistake.
I should say,
I apologize.
Connor did come right up to me and yelled at me. It was like, Sam, he was wrong.
So I'm just going to rectify that now. Whoever is out there who heard that, including you, Connor, yeah, I realised it, and I did comment on that because I do read everyone's comments and tweets.
We're really,
All
really
three
sorry.
of you.
All
This is
three.
the official apology cast from the Animite.
I think we now have like 15 subscribers. I would hope
Also,
that they hear this.
can I change my answer?
No.
Mostly because I realized because I thought you were going to do One Piece, so we'd have like the fantasy element that wasn't superheroes. Because if I knew you were doing superheroes, I would have chosen a different answer. To be honest,
It's funny that you say that because I'm now actually going to go into something that actually is relating to this, which is in D&D, because obviously we have the power discovery system in Animite Tales. For those who don't know, obviously with superheroes, they have power discovery. They discover their powers somehow. In Animite Tales, it's a system about superpowers. So we have that situation. They have different ones. For instance, like power discovery via fight. For instance, you got into a fight and somehow your power is activated to either save or help you or hinder you. You have power discovery via tragedy. Something bad happened to you that is a tragic, traumatic situation that either awoke your powers, or was the very reason as to why your powers exist in the first place. And there are many others. Different ones like power discovery via gifts. Like someone else gives you the powers for power discovery via desire. For instance, you wanted this power more than ever, so that then when you got the power, say for instance, if you're like the son of like a really powerful hero, and you were like, oh man, I really hope that one day I want to become just like you, or at least a child of a really powerful hero, or whatever. And you wake up and it's that son. I don't know, like say for instance, your parent has the power of super strength, and then you wake up and you have super strength, and because you've desired it for so long, you get like an extra bonus with using it or something. So there are all sorts of different things that you can get. However, I was actually going to move into this fantasy. We're gonna sort of move into that because they obviously have the class system, but I was actually going to talk more about just specifically the magic situation of like the discovery is one. I can hear sound just go. Here we go. I've got this. So obviously,
I mean, it wasn't going to be magic. It's going to be something else I was going to mention, but okay,
no, that's fine. I'll get to you in a second, Sam. Don't worry. I can feel
over here.
I didn't even get to finish my thought from initially, which was, and then Sam is just sort of like, I have notes.
I can hear him hyperventilating, and I can feel the edge of his seat suddenly start to crackle with just the amount of pressure as he's just right on the edge there. Just come on, Joe, shut up, let me do it. So in fantasy settings like in D&D, how exactly do you think that it would be done? For instance, discovering one's special abilities, powers, whatever, like that. How exactly do you think that would work in a fantasy, or at least a non, or either a magical, non-magical, or at least not specifically a non-superhero situation? Sam, you can now take the floor.
Damn, I was hoping it wasn't. Well, I was going to bring up something else, but if you're considering we're specifically going the D&D style,
no, go on.
I was going to bring up one of the greatest game series of all time, Persona.
Oh, yeah.
All of their moments where they gain the power and they get they learn pretty much they discover their power within themselves.
Oh, I didn't think of that. Actually, it's true. It's like they go through. Yeah, go on. Yeah.
I was going specifically. I'm going to mention the third game, which was the first game I played, where the main character being a mute. It's like pretty much it's the 12 o'clock. All the monsters are coming. 12 hours arriving, and you with one of the females of the group, because one of the many love interests you can have. Pretty much flee to the top of the building. And she attempts to unlock her power by putting a pistol to her head, or the evoker. But you should say you don't know at the time. So during the game, you just see this girl just put a gun to her head and not shoot, then get hit by this blob of slime, and then it kind of just flies towards you on the ground. You pick it up, then you just kind of hear the voice in your head. I am thou, thou art I. Unleash the power, and then you press the gun, bam, your persona shoots out, and you save the day. Of course, Alex knows the fourth game.
Yeah.
You want to say
I
that?
mean, it is just sort of like, yeah, it is basically just activating something within you, usually through a traumatic thing. I mean, the fourth game, it's like learning something about yourself, like confronting your real self. And that's not necessarily pleasant. It's like, yeah, I guess it would be like, I suppose, like discovery via tragedy, I would suppose, if we're going to do it in the game, it's like you are sort of getting in touch with your inner emotions and your id essentially, and it's manifesting as a thing that fights monsters for you.
So you're telling me that
Yeah.
this is an object that awakens your innermost spirit.
Somewhat.
Yeah,
It's.
well,
I
it's not.
mean, in the fourth game,
your
it's
innermost
you don't.
id.
The fourth game, it's more like you accept what like your
What your
side of
dark
yourself.
side, basically.
You accept your shadow, which is the side you don't show the rest of the world.
So what you're telling
Like,
me is...
whereas
No, go on.
in the third game, it's accepting that more. In the third game, it's accepting your own mortality, which is why you use an evoker that's shaped like a gun, because you have to accept that yes, one day you will die.
So, okay.
Whereas
so
in the fifth game, yeah.
I was just going to say, let me get this straight. So either way, the whole concept is it's an object that when it introduced to a person in a specific situation, it can then awaken their darkest self, innermost self, their id, their greatest spirit, whatever you want to say,
It's not necessarily the object, though.
as a form
that's
of
only
power.
it's only in the third game that it's actually an object. In the fourth game, just kind of manifests as a card.
Yeah,
As an
it just sort of it.
arcana.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I guess it is. It's more sort of like you don't need an object; it just sort of is there, like it's with you at all times.
What about
Whereas
okay?
the
So,
fifth game, it's a mask that you actually put on because it's your will to rebel.
all right, so
To actually
just
get your
because
persona, you have to rip off the mask.
just because I know for a fact that Alfie would have me strung up in the streets if I didn't actually mention this. That is a direct correlation to the way that people discover their stands in JoJo's Bizarre Adventure.
Oh yeah.
Hey, but I
Hit
don't
the
care
clock,
about JoJo.
time to reset. So here we go.
I don't care about JoJo. I don't
Yeah,
care
well,
about
I do.
Persona
So
and
here we
their-
go.
Yeah,
and
So-
the great
we-
TV
yeah, we
series
care
that
about
they
JoJo.
have.
For the sake of it, we're going to talk about it now. That
Yeah.
system is brilliant because it is fantastic in the way of how it creates a personification of one's own deepest obsessions, desires, and regrets. And one of the best parts about that situation is, oh, this person really, really dislikes this or really is obsessed with this, and therefore this power, this spirit ghost or this spiritual power manifests itself in this shape, in this creature, in this form, in this phenomenon, in this object, and it just becomes something, and it has special, bizarre, or magical powers. And the way that they discover it usually is because of an object that is made out of this weird metal. And it's usually in the shape of an arrow. But some people discover it through when they're born. They then awaken and they have these special powers. So during during one of the actual seasons, there's a moment where a guy has this power, and he basically says about like, oh, I'm terrified of anyone seeing my back. I'm obsessed with anyone seeing my back. You later on find out that he's a stand user. Someone sees his back, and his own stand kills him because it's attached to his back, and it then jumps to the next person, and as it does so, it tears off the back of this guy, and he just bleeds to death. So it is that thing of like, you see that, and then you see another person who's like, my obsession is that I want to continue growing. So eventually his stand actually has 3 different forms, 3 different special forms that do different things. and they're like roughly similar to each other as they go on, but they are more powerful. But they have different things. Like for instance, one of them I think can go up to like 20 or 50 meters away from him. The other one can go only 20 or 10, and the other one can only go like about 5. But they're more powerful the closer range they are, sort of thing. So
I can say this sight unseen. Persona is far better.
Nah, you're
I
wrong.
mean,
But we'll continue on.
Yep, right.
all right, enough of the nerd fighting. I'm sick of I'm sick of all of the infighting. Why can't we all just like get along and
Also,
hold hands and join a jump circle?
Because of that, Sam.
Also, I'll expose your character you're going to talk to us about. By the way, that we never actually got to.
Yeah, yeah. Well, it was just a little.
I know Connor's going to be annoyed.
Well, I know it was just a little thing really because it was just a thought on like some of the minor characters because there's this one guy that doesn't actually discover his power until he loses it, and it's actually kind of it's really sad because it's basically he was like a world famous photographer, and like he could always get the perfect shot on everything. And when House of M happens and there's no more mutants, he just finds that he's shit at photography. And like he didn't even realize it. He just thought that it was a real skill, and it was like, it's like, and nobody will really believe it and say, "Oh, it's just you're just shite and stuff." But that was his mutant power. It was just getting the perfect shot, and that's a very not very flashy skill, kind of useless, but it put him to the top of his field, and now that's just gone. And I just think that that's just a tiny little micro tragedy in the whole thing, and like it illustrates like with powers and powers discovery, like sometimes they're so minor but yet so useful. You don't realize they're there until it's gone.
It does remind
and I just find
me.
find that
No, sorry. I was just gonna say it does remind me of the power. So in My Hero Academia, you find out that this guy has the ability to steal other people's powers, and he has a quirkless little brother. And eventually he's like, "Oh, I'm going to give you a power, the power to stockpile power." Because it's like, "Oh, if I give you this ability, you'll be able to stockpile power up over a certain amount of time and be able to use it." And when he gives it to him, he then discovers that he also has a power. And it's so ironic and so dumb. It turns out his ability is he has the power to be able to pass on other powers. And it's that then culminates as to the power that eventually becomes this ability called One for All, a one power that will become more powerful each time that it goes to the next person. It's one power that in the hands of anyone else, it has a right to be in the hands of anyone else. In other words, one power for all people equally. And it's this thing of each time it's passed on, it stockpiles that power, jumps to the next person, gives them that, and during the time that they have it, they're making it more and more powerful, and then they pass it on and pass it on and pass it on. So by the time that you actually get to see it, it is very powerful. It's ridiculous. It's one of the most overpowered abilities. So again, like it's kind of interesting that discovery. It's funny that you say he gets his power stolen. This is someone adds a power to him, and that's when he realizes that he actually did have a power all along, sort of thing. So it's kind of interesting. So we'll go back to the D&D thing, or at least specifically the fantasy setting of like how exactly power discovery, or even like magical power or specific thingy, like how like even just origin stories. If they would give you like an extra boost or bonus, how exactly that would work in D&D. The one that I had honestly been struggling with, wrestling with mentally for a long time, that I think I'm finally going to tell you guys now for this podcast, for this episode, is obviously the Sorcerer one is so easy to come up with, it's so easy to do the Sorcerer on, you're just born with magical power. But I like the idea that as a wizard, your origin is that, like, your discovery is that it's a lineage thing. That one day you find a book and it's like a grimoire of all of your previous predecessors' other spells. And you now are the next person who's inherited this grimoire. and you now need to continue writing in it, and eventually you'll pass it on to the next who you believe is worthy enough, or your next of kin. So I don't know. That's a decent way of having it for a young wizard, because I know a lot of people, like, I don't know if everyone does this, but I have seen and heard a lot of people having very old wizards, like, oh yeah, my character's like 700 years old as an elf, or my character's like 80 as a human or something, you know, whatever.
It's sort of like the Shazam complex, I think, is
Yeah.
what I'm naming it myself, where it's like, all of this ancient knowledge and wisdom and all of this incredible power is just given to a kid, and it's like that's a great, start to any story where you're basically just sort of like, and it's like, it's just intimidating, like saying that it's like with any sort of hero's journey thing, you're initially just given this huge important thing, and you're like, me? Really? Which
I also just like the idea of the inexperienced overpower. Well, not overpower, like the inexperienced overpowering concept of the starting point. That you're just like for instance, like if someone shows you how powerful you are in like an RPG, and they're like, oh yeah, my character's level 90 and you're only just starting, but I'll try and help you, and you just see like, wow, this is all of what the game could be, and then you just slap bang in the middle of the game, no weapons, and you're just like in rags, and you're like, but I know what I can become. And it's this thing of, this book is physical proof of what you can become, because many have done before you. So I don't know, that's kind of interesting to me.
I mean,
What
there
about you?
is something in the game that Animite tells that I quite like about that kind of origin. If that's okay to talk about
Yeah,
that,
yeah, 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 go for it.
because I really like, well, my character Irving Thornborn, like, he had a power discovery, which is discovery through lineage. And
Yes.
like, one of the effects of it, which I just thought was so neat, was that you could roll advantage on intimidation, or just any kind of specific charisma rolls to, like, invoking your name when you're demonstrating your powers. And it's like, it just has that really cool sort of thing where that you're from a line, and that you have this specific power that gives you that moment of like, my name is Inigo Montoya, you killed my father, prepare to die, those sort of this sort of moment, and people are like, okay, I made a mistake picking a fight with you.
I think it was like Bill who we were going back and forth, and it was like, damn it, we really wish that we had that power discovery for anomalies, because we don't have power discoveries for those who have two powers yet. We really, really wanted that concept, and we just said no in the end. But it would have been great for Phileas, the son of the sun, literally titled by like the son of one of the most powerful heroes, and it just be like power discovery either via lineage or power discovery via birth. It's like, yeah, you're born from a very powerful family. You knew that your powers are going to be this way, and now that you now know exactly who you are. And doing that exact thing of like, my name is Phileas Soul, and I am the son of the sun, and people just going, okay, yep, we'll immediately move our stuff out of the way. Big boy table reserved for this guy. Like, like, I don't know. That was kind of interesting to me. But
What would be so great as well is if Phileas, like, has descendants, and it's like, eventually you'll get the seventh son of the seventh son of the seventh son.
damn it.
Just hint, hint.
So, Sam, what about you?
I mean, I've played a lot of D&D, and most of the time they never go that way. Mostly because you can't start off first level like that. You can't do spells at higher level. You can barely do first level spells. You can do 2 spells maximum per day. Maybe with some cantrips. You can't do wish. You can't even do blow wind.
The way you said that was perfect.
Or maybe not blow wind, but just like heavy wind.
I want
essentially
that
a
now.
wind-based spell.
If anyone's out there, catch that exact moment in the recording, cut that out, and send that to me as a soundbite, because I want that as my text sound. You can't even blow wind.
No.
I mean, I want you to say that in a real campaign as well, because that would. If you said that to me as level 1, I would be reduced to tears, and I'm like,
Oh, my pride.
But yeah,
Uh,
I mean, like most times, what you do for a wizard is, oh, I'm smart. I'm not strong. So I can't be a fighter. I'm gonna go to a school. I'm gonna go to a school and learn how to be a wizard because wizards have schools, college, and
Aha, I have something
or
that you
yeah,
don't.
or like they are the seventh son of the seventh son. That actually is a starting point in the book in D&D. You can't just choose that.
Hmm.
At
And
that
that's fair
point, they're
enough.
like, well, yeah, or you're an apprentice to a wizard, and that's when you start your own book. Is like spell books are very personal, and they're usually very expensive. So it's if you get a spell book, you're going to sell it. You're gonna rip what spells you want and then sell it on.
Fair enough.
But
So,
like even like the closest thing I've ever come to that was when I played a cleric. Actually, because
Oh.
I did the idea that essentially my village got attacked, and the whole everyone pretty much almost got killed by bandits, and then like the world mother came to me and said, "Well, you save the day. I bestow you powers." Became a cleric. God told me to.
It's weird because I've been in games where like the opposite, like the evil version of that happens if you play like a bad character, like this like something from the shadows is just going like, good, let the evil flow through you.
I
Like
mean,
old
I don't know what
warlock.
you're talking about. That's definitely never happened before, ever
Never.
in any campaign. So,
Good.
so, Sam, my question really was, if you had to pick a class or even a special magical ability to have a power discovery from D&D, like as in like basically making a power discovery, like in the superhero genre, but for a character in D&D, what would you do it, and how do you think it would work?
Uh, well, I'd probably do druid as the class because druids are they're very near nature, and power discovery wise, I would just kind of do it that they're walking through a forest and like the plants just kind of bend towards them, almost like Magneto's one where like he discovered his because things just moved towards him. I just have like the plants just kind of aim towards the character.
Yeah, fair
As
enough.
like just pretty much like full Disney princess, where like even birds just kind of land on their shoulder
So
and
why
begin to
do
eat and
why
sing with.
do birds suddenly
No,
suddenly appear every
no,
time that I'm near?
no, none of
Yes.
that. None of that. We're moving on very
Or
swiftly.
or like
So,
when it rains, like a tree just kind of like suddenly moves its branch
It's like there
so
you
that
go,
they're all like the
little
leaves cover.
druid. There you go, little
I
druid. You're
mean, you can't
trying.
talk to trees. That is a spell, and they can move.
so fair enough with that one. So I mean, power discovery is always kind of interesting. I mean, I've done quite a few ones. For instance, was it self obvious or self? No, that's it. Self evident or obvious self evident experience. For instance, you were bungee jumping and suddenly you stopped in midair because it turns out you could fly, or your entire house started catching fire, but when the fire touched you, it didn't burn because your power is the ability to turn into fire. Or, just
Just
one
start
last one,
fires.
you cut your hand and immediately your hand heals instantly. You realise your power is healing. It's the idea that a very obvious, self-evident experience happens to make you realise that. And to be fair, I am now going to use the reference that Sam had feared all along,
Oh,
because there is one specific power that you gain in this series that is so obvious because of the way that it's done. I'm of course talking about when you eat a devil fruit in One Piece. Because the fruit, the legend states, when you eat the fruit, it is very physically disgusting to those who ever eat it. You know how the powers work immediately when you get it, at least the basic circumstance of how they activate, if they are activational and not passive. And also, you lose the ability to swim. Now, most people know what devil fruits are and what they look like. Not everyone does, but most people. But they know roughly how their powers work when they activate them. Now, the legend also states that apparently you know the name of the fruit and the way that the powers are the second that you eat it. I don't know if that's a mistranslation, but if so, there are like 2 or 3 characters that when they ate them, they still didn't know what the power's name was until like many years after. So I'm gonna call bullshit, but regardless, that is a self-evident experience because you ate a fruit and it gave you powers. It's pretty damn simple with that one. So
it is the classic continuity error or translation mistake.
yeah, you never know
Who knows?
which, especially with translated things. I mean, either way, we'll get into that. As for Kitty Pryde, I still think that Kitty Pryde has got nothing on Togata Mirio, who also has the same powers as Kitty Pryde. But Togata Mirio, aka Lemillion from My Hero Academia, he also becomes intangible. But when he does it, he becomes intangible to anything and everything. So he slips through the floor. And I think it's like supposed to be like when he's 5 or 6, he discovers his power because he's playing video games with his best friend and he slips through the floor and both of them start panicking.
Oh, I've clipped through reality.
So you're saying it's like the ending to that one episode of Batman Beyond?
Pretty much, yeah. Just
I think Alex gets.
Yeah, I think I vaguely remember that. I am familiar with this Batman fellow.
But
Yes.
the way that it pretty much works though is that like he can become intangible to anything, but when he too much of him is inside of a physical object, because they can't overlap, he just pops out, like either through like it just spitting him out, like launching him out, or it just like pops him out so quickly that it looks like teleportation. And Kitty Pryde doesn't have that ability. But Kitty Pryde does have something that he doesn't, which is she can touch things and choose if those things also become intangible with her or if they don't. Because there's a moment, as you see with the pillow becomes intangible with her, but she could also have chosen to become intangible to the pillow. So, yeah. She also at one point does actually phase her hand through someone who is holding her hand. But on other circumstances, if someone is holding her hand and they come with her, they will also become intangible to the walls that she is also becoming intangible to.
There are some things that she can't, depending on which continuity. There is limits to her power. Like
Yeah.
I think it's like certain thicknesses of adamantium. Like she can't quite get through that. I think the idea is that after a while, like she just can't really breathe. Through it because it's just so thick and so intangible. Like I mean, it's like sci-fi logic. It doesn't really make much sense from
See
time
again,
to
I
time,
still
but
like the Mirio one because Mirio actually has this thing of when I start using my permeation, air passes through my lungs, so I can't breathe. Like I can breathe in, but my body won't be able to take in the oxygen. Light passes through my retinas, so I can't see. Vibrations go through my eardrums, so I can't hear. I can't feel any sensation, and all I do is fall down. The only sensation I have is falling further and further down. He says it's very disorientating, and he said it took me 3 years of trying to master this and gaining experience to be able to figure out how I could use my powers without being under the situation. And there's a moment where a character uses this ability to make him feel drunk, because his power is he can convert or at least transfer over his drunkenness to someone else, so he constantly is drinking. And he puts Mirio in this moment where he's like he can barely stand, and then he just goes, "Oh, okay, I just need to get my bearings for a second," and then he becomes intangible and he just starts going through different things. It's like, oh, you can't become intangible to like this feeling. It's like, no, but I always have the feeling of not being able to be on steady ground when I'm using my powers. So if I keep using my powers, my mind, my muscle memory will kick in, and it's this thing of like, oh man, that's such a cool way of figuring it out. I don't know.
I mean, then again, it's like this is what we're talking about. It's like the power discovery being a key part in that character going forward. It's like having a, this scare experience and having no control, and then going to, becoming a character that has full control of themselves
It's like with Doctor
and the
Manhattan.
situation.
Yeah, it's like with Doctor Manhattan. Like his technically his power discovery was when his entire body gets atomized and he has to string it all back. And then there's a moment where Osmodeus, he like tries to atomize him, and then he comes back instantly. He goes, I learned how to do that. That's reassembling my body. That's the first thing I learned how to do, and you thought that you were going to be able to break me by disassembling me. I love that. That is such a power discovery meets master of my own abilities moment. So yeah, I mean that's what I think of it. Anyway. That's one of the reasons why I like it so much.
I realized I was trying to remember this, but I thought I got it wrong in my head. I thought she phased the Earth at one point. She was able to transphase the Earth. No, instead she transphased a giant bullet that would have destroyed the Earth.
It goes right for it. Yeah, that was dumb. It's very dumb, but
at one point.
never mind. It's Marvel Comics. They do
To be
this.
fair, this is the same comic that also said that gamma radiation is actually an energy field that comes from hell, and actually the person who gave the power of the Hulk to Bruce Banner is actually the one below all, the anti-god. Yay. So sorry for ruining everyone's Hulk, but yeah.
We don't remember that. We're just going to say that didn't happen.
That's quite
We didn't
recent
have that
as well, which is even
no,
worse.
not canon.
So that's not
we've
canon
decided.
anymore.
Same with Vision's dick. It's not canon anymore. Like Joss
mean,
Whedon was taken off the project. Vision's dick does not exist.
Same way both Spider-Man made deals with Mephisto, both non-canon now. Even Miles Morales.
Either way, so obviously we've talked about that power discovery. I don't know why. I think in the terms of storytelling, it's really good. In the terms of games, it's always quite tricky. But they do use it in many different situations. In RPGs, they're like, "Oh, how did you discover this? What are you? What class are you?" I feel like class is also specifically origin related. Like again, like in D&D, yeah, they do have that. Yes, I know. Before people start going, well, actually, yeah, I know that like the class, you can make up your own backstory as to how you became part of that class, whether you were born into it, whether you joined it, whatever. Like I'm just talking about if you used it more in the same circumstances, how you got your powers. Like again, bitten by a radioactive spider, suddenly discovered them through this means, born into this family. Like there's so many other different ways that you could do it. For instance, the idea of like being a warlock is brilliant, but I like the idea of what if you were actually, for instance, you became a sorcerer because that someone or something gave you something that was introduced into your blood, rather than you were born a sorcerer. You were given the magical powers to become a sorcerer. I'm sure there are things.
Warlock.
Yeah, well, except from without making deals, like actually, like, I don't know. Either way,
or like being given if you're like a vampire or something, someone gives you the embrace for some reason.
yeah,
Or like
sure.
you accidentally get bitten. Or like if you're like you were a vampire hunter and you got bit, which is something that can happen in various video games.
Like
And
Blade.
yeah.
Or half vampire.
Like the whole the whole situation with Blade is like, his mother's pregnant with him, and then she gets bit, but some of the vampire powers get to him, but he gets all of the upsides of being a vampire, but very few of the downsides. Like he can walk about in the daytime, and I don't think he has to feast on. Yeah, he's a daywalker, and I don't think he actually has to feast on blood or anything. At least not. Yeah,
I think if I remember correctly, his friend person has like synthetic blood that he uses.
Yeah, so he could he doesn't have to feed on humans basically, but he can do it on. Yes, he has the powers of veganism coursing through him, and he will destroy you.
But well,
If
And,
one
like,
thing
yeah.
vampires can't face.
That's another sort of sorcerer sort of style thing. But again, that's him being born. I mean, like as in being given a power, but without being made a deal and without it being a form of religion. I'm saying that there is a possibility that becoming a sorcerer does not need to be a specific thing to do with the fact that you had to make a deal. It's just someone is like, I'm going to give you this power. Similar to, I don't know, Shazam. Because it's not necessarily... Actually, no, it is Warlock, because he can have his powers taken
He's
away
not a
from him at
sorcerer,
any
and he
time.
did make a deal.
Yeah.
Shazam can
mind.
just take... The wizard Shazam can, I think has in the past, just taken the powers back.
Technically Spider-Man, because he's bitten by something, and there is no deal made, and they are biological to him.
Eric?
Huh?
He is given powers by God, by the god Rame of the multiverse.
No.
Yes, that is canon.
No,
You're going to do
no,
Hulk
no.
is given powers by Satan.
No.
Doing the actual canon of spider totems.
I'm sorry. No. And here's
and
why.
the spider god.
No, here's why. Because it does physically affect him. He didn't make a deal, and also he doesn't pray to that god to get powers from it. So therefore he's not a cleric, a paladin, or a warlock. If he had made a deal with them, then therefore he would be a warlock. If he prayed to them and gained powers only through prayer, then he'd be a cleric. Therefore he is neither.
But he fights for truth and justice, like a paladin. And he shows off their colours. Spider on his chest.
I hate you so much.
Spider-Man is totes
Fine.
paladin, yeah.
Captain America. There we go. Sorcerer. Done.
Made a deal with the government to protect the justice and the
No, he did. No, wait, no, because that technically is. He gave his life for his country, and therefore he's made a deal.
It's not magical
with
though.
the government.
My point is, it's
He's
introduced
Spider-Man.
into. No, okay,
Yes, he
right.
is.
Here we go. In fact, you even said in the previous episode when we were talking about warlocks and power granting, you and I both came to the terms that technically it's not a warlock if the powers can't be taken back. And you said, and I quote, technically, the Spider-Verse is more like a clergy and a form of a Patreon warlocks, because their powers can be removed if that god or that universe or energy field is disrupted or destroyed. Therefore, because of that, Steve Rogers is actually a sorcerer that is infected with this power. Now, obviously, I want to point out, obviously I know he's not a sorcerer. I have to say this more than anything, because I know people are going to come up to me and like, what are you even talking about anymore? In this particular situation...
I think Joe just wants to get this out of his system, to be honest.
No, I'm done. I'm sorry. Obviously, he's clearly a barbarian. I'm kidding. Fighter. And human, so he's basic, and none of you can touch me.
I mean, I should say, looking it up now, you can't just be a sorcerer like that. There's like the Aberrant Mind one, where it's just an unknown deity from another world just does that.
Sam,
like a psychic wind from the astral plane carried psionic energy.
You and I are going to have words behind the bike shed. You and I are going to have some very stern words behind that bike shed. So.
But
we've
anyway,
clearly learnt nothing.
Enough about Captain America and Spider-Man.
We've clearly learnt nothing from this, but all I will say is, from this particular situation, we have gained one thing, and that is the knowledge that power discovery means nothing to do with D&D. So we're just going to move on. So,
no,
power discovery is such a unique thing because it is the origin point, and it is something that it's that thing of like, oh, how would you discover your powers? What would be the worst or best way to discover powers? For instance, like for I don't know, you work in a factory and you have to manufacture, you have to handle a lot of different bits and pieces made of metal. An accident happens, and suddenly you have the ability to manipulate metal, like Magneto or Toph, and specifically only Toph. Or you have, or I don't know, say for instance, like you suddenly are set on fire, and then you now have the ability to forever set yourself on fire without feeling any pain and manipulate fire whilst on fire. I don't know. There's a ton of different things like that. Hashtag.
You make a deal with the devil, like Ghost Rider.
Yeah, or that. Wait, is it the devil? Yes, no, it is.
It's the devil.
For some reason, I thought it was death. But
I don't know. It's the devil because
No,
you become
no,
his
fair enough.
Ghost Rider,
fair enough.
or the Hulk. You get blasted by
That's a
radiation.
warlock, by the way. I'm not arguing any further than that. But that is
I
a
mean,
warlock.
I don't think you could take away his power. Though considering he does fight the devil a lot, I thought you would take his power if he was.
I mean, theoretically, it's still a thing because it was a pact. But
Anyway,
so the concept is, power discovery is very important to.
I think the power discovery is just the origin story then.
Yeah,
of
pretty
most
much.
people.
Yeah, you gain special perks and abilities based on it. But yeah, I mean, again, like some of my favorite ones have been like, for instance, we never actually did one for any of the anomalies, but I really like the idea that Aspen's one is just literally power discovery through tragedy because of the way that you originally described the backstory to me. But mostly just because of the concept of like it's this thing of like, oh man, I was specifically born with the hope of becoming basically a really powerful biological user, and then it's like, oh, I also have this ability, and it's like they immediately shun Aspen because of this, and it's like that's a really traumatic event, and because of that, Aspen starts realizing that like this tragic event has suddenly created this thing of once a day they then have this ability to use their powers with an advantage. And we usually state that it's either a form of PTSD controlling it through emotions, or it's similar to like Eric from in other words Magneto from first class, where it's like feel the power between love and serenity. No, what was it?
Rage and serenity.
Thank you. Yes,
Yeah.
rage and serenity. And
That would be so
Bastardizing that
cool.
great quote.
it is that. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I love that scene, and I'm so sorry I missed that. But yeah, it's that thing of that perfect moment between those things of like that tragedy and now maybe perhaps the very thing that Aspen holds dear to their heart, and it's that thing of like that's the thing that makes them roll that advantage once a day, of that rage and serenity moment, or the sadness and happiness moment. To be fair, we never actually did one for cover, but in all honesty, if we ever did one for cover, I actually really like the idea that it's mundane. Like the
I
idea
don't know what cover would be, considering his power required him to touch other people.
again, mundane task. He was just doing
Yeah.
something, and he shook someone's hand, and he copied their powers, and he's like, "Oh, okay, well that's cool.
I can do that
guess. I can do that
It's
now."
something I can do.
And it's just that thing of like, aha. But I think mundane task in the game, it states that like once a day you can use your ability without needing to roll for it.
That's
He
what I
was
have
always
for...
that unflappable.
Yeah, and I mean, almost everything that he rolled for didn't necessarily fail. Except from the one that counted.
the one.
Again, that's
Honestly,
another
like,
story.
honestly, like that's the one that I have for Aoife in the Anime Fables game. It was just like, doesn't have to roll just once a day. The superpower pearl just works.
Yeah.
And that was just the mundane task that I had in my mind was that, little Aoife, playing with kids, just like throwing some stones in a lake, and it just like, oh yay, first I can throw it further, and then just doing like, listlessly throwing stones, and then just Aoife during like the third stone throw, just like yeets it into the pond, and it's just like a,
I
and
mean,
like,
that
huh,
that is like a really mundane task, but that also seems like a self-evident experience as well. Like, I mean, obviously, it makes sense for either, but like, it's one of those things that, like, damn, that would have been quite an interesting way of doing either. I think okay, so if I was to make one, I think I would like to do, because I'm now gonna do this, so I'm now gonna do this. So if we were to make ones with a discovery, and why exactly or how exactly it would work, I think I would like to do one where it's a character with super speed, and the idea is that it's a gift that originally this guy, or specifically this boy, he really wants to be like an Olympic capable runner, and he's always training to run. He's always doing this, and eventually, like, he has like this coach and this trainee. It's like it's like, oh, I used to be running like you, kid, but then I bust up my leg and now I can't do it anymore. And eventually, it's like on the day that he's supposed to be doing these tryouts, he then just like says, he just goes, Godspeed, kid, and like all of a sudden he just runs at like 300 miles per hour.
Oh,
and
yeah.
no idea.
That's power via gift and stuff,
Yeah.
I would suppose.
And it's his coach. He just goes, you're a worthy successor, and he just gives him that power. But he never knew that his coach was the one who had this power, like this incredible super speed. And it's like, this is your debut, and he had no idea. And it's this thing of like, what? And
It's like, just across the field, just bang it. That would backfire so badly as well. It's like, yeah, this kid is a worthy successor, and then he just smashes into the wall at a million miles.
Maybe I should have probably warned him. I should have probably warned the kid. Damn it. So, what about you guys? Like, if you could make another one with a power discovery.
You know what I gotta say, because I didn't manage to really get it off with Irving, but I would love to have that moment where I essentially create a character like the Juggernaut, and it's like power through lineage or something, or like with their powers, and they come from a family of Juggernauts. So it's like every time I was like say, "I'm the Juggernaut, bitch," everyone just suddenly has to roll this and just wets their pants and leaves. It's like, yeah, that's the Juggernaut, bitch. Let's leave.
Yep, Juggernaut. No.
Holy shit! It's the Juggernaut.
I say, Alex, you're referencing a great X-Men: The Last Stand movie, which Joe hates.
So Sam, what would you have for yours?
Because of that.
Sam, what would you have for yours then?
Trying to think of the characters I have created with backstories for this game.
I mean, if you were to like make up one with one of the powers or anything for specifically.
I mean, I could say the one I did for the Kobold I made. Dago.
Although Dago doesn't really have a power discovery though, because obviously we had to change it, didn't we?
We kind of decided.
Well, no, because the thing is, power discovery is specifically a species ability now.
Oh, okay.
So he doesn't have one.
Yeah.
I mean, we chose one that didn't affect him anyway, so
yeah, so it doesn't matter.
Okay,
anyway.
I should say in the universe he is like a mutant then, not like the other kobolds. Not all kobolds are like dragons.
I mean, technically,
just have to explain that to you.
Technically, you said to me. There are a few of his clan that have the same ability as Dago. He's not like a one of a kind. It's just a
I'm
very
just
rare
saying,
thing.
Not all of them are. Like, they're like mutants. Like in mutants, there are a few of them. They're semi-rare, but there's like a school full of them in like the X-Men comics.
Yeah.
It's like that. They're like the mutants essentially, except they all have the same mutation. But, okay. I'd probably go for. I did make this character once. It was a spider-based character, of course, because I love Spider-Man. But I essentially went for the idea that he was part of a expedition into like the Babylonian, but it was some kind of. It was just kind of a made-up place. Essentially, went in like this temple, and like Indiana Jones stuff happened. The point that he was the last one there.
Okay.
And like all the walls had fallen down, so he's pretty much trapped. He's trapped there for a couple of days until he saw water, but it was actually like water just coming down from the statue. And when he drank from it, he was given like a vision of probably power given, I guess. Like pretty much he hallucinated. When he woke up, he was out of there. He had the power to turn into a giant spider.
So power of our gift, but instead of the gift being something that he actually was given by someone else, it's something else, or even it's just there for the taking and he didn't even know it.
Pretty much.
That is cool. That's such a
pretty much
cool.
the idea that he was like because he was the last one there, the only one to survive the challenges of the temple. I should say he should have licked it like 3 days earlier, but he didn't know that. He was thirsty, and there's nothing else.
Fair enough. I mean, that's how it always has to go. I assume in crazy temples. I don't know. I've never been.
Yeah. I mean, we've all seen temples in video games. They all have either aliens, mythical beings, or mummies, even if they're not Egyptian.
And just loads of spike traps that you can dodge, but only you, the NPCs, just fall in them like they're idiots. So
Yeah. Okay, well, this has been an interesting sort of subject, I guess. I guess the last thing that I was really just going to add to this was really... I guess next time we'll actually talk about power synergies. Coming up with some of the really kind of like cool combinations. And actually talking about like some of our favourite combinations of powers. And exactly like how well they worked in either the universes that they were in, the games that they were in. And then we'll talk about anomalies. At the moment the most favoured race in Animite Tales. So thanks again, Alex and Sam, for joining me today on this podcast. We to be fair, we just mostly argued.
I know. I mean, we did a little bit of talk about power discoveries that we like, but it's just sort of like just loads of fighting. But I hear that's popular on the internet these days, so who knows? Maybe people will like it.
I mean, I know for a fact when we're done here, we're going to think of like 5 more examples, and Connor is going to yell, "Why didn't he say blah 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 from this anime? He clearly loves that anime. He should have mentioned this character."
The only one that
I would say no.
The only one that I will say is, I guess if you really want to throw this out there, I'm just going to rapid fire around these ones. Dragon Ball Z, Lineage. Someone is told that they are actually an alien race from another planet. Technically, you could do that if someone said, "I am a Saiyan from Earth." Oh no, he's a Saiyan. That's how his powers work. Naruto, power discovery through gift. He is given the powers of a demon fox, and One Piece again. You already know this. Self-evident experience. You ate a fruit and it gave you powers.
And I just realized Naruto and the main character of Persona 3 are semi-similar, because they both get forced a giant spirit inside of them. Naruto being a fox thing, and Persona 3 being the representation of humanity's want of suicide.
However, I must believe that Persona 5 does not fall flat on its face with its own specific theming. For instance, Naruto in the first series, it says, it doesn't matter who you're born as, you'll always be able to work hard and your hard work will eventually pay off. No matter how talented someone is, you are really powerful. And then it doesn't matter because it falls flat on its face, because at the end it's like, nah, you're just born a god anyway because you're the reincarnation of a demigod. Cool, awesome.
I mean, all the Persona games have their own theme and they all work well. Considering this is kind of a spoiler. Persona 3 ends with you sacrificing your life to save everyone else.
Well,
What's really weird? No, what's really weird about it though is that they all kind of coexist. They're all like completely different games with like.
Oh no, they all exist in the same universe.
Yeah, but they're all set in the same universe, and it's just sort of like, huh? It's like, okay, you had one set of rules here. And now you got another set of rules here, and another set of rules here, and it's like
clearly someone.
It makes sense.
Someone who's just messing with reality.
It makes sense in context because they're all fighting a god, and it's all about humanity and their weird differences.
I suppose so.
It says that they all have different rules because, like, the third one is death god. Fourth one is whatever that god was.
Just
right,
exactly, and it's like, okay,
I should say the fourth one just added a god because they needed a tree ending. It was good, but the main story didn't actually even involve the god for most of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, I guess this makes sense that this is just sort of ending messy, considering it started messy. Hey, bringing it back round to discoveries. So, guys,
this is what happens when you have a Copperberg.
Well, okay then. Anyway, so if you guys enjoyed listening to this podcast, or if you didn't, hit that like button or hit that dislike button. I don't really know what's exactly going on with this episode, but next time we'll be talking about power synergies, and after that, who knows? So if you guys are actually interested in hearing anything else about superpowers, or even just generally anything to do with like strange abilities and special effects, definitely check out Animite Tales YouTube channel. I messed that up, but I'm going to keep going anyway, because that's what happens when you soldier on. I am Ongoer John, Ongoer Joe, aka at Animite Tales on Twitter. Hit me up, have a look at exactly what we're doing. I post stuff every now and again, and also we have a Patreon if you guys are interested in helping support the tabletop RPG, aka Animite Tales, that is currently being playtested on our own Discord server. We might open that up soon again if anyone is interested in playing it, playtesting it, and helping us out with anything. But until then, thank you very much for listening. Thank you very much for helping us. Take care. Ciao, ciao for now.